you searching for fulfillment? Discover true happiness. Stay tuned to Shalom World.
My name is Michael James Mette. I am a husband to Michelle. We got married about 20 years ago. I'm a father of 8 so far. I'm a minister of music. We have a family ministry that we travel around, sharing experiences of God in a modern context with lights and video and music. But first and foremost, at the foundation of who I am a child of God. This is my lovely wife, Michelle. We met each other when we were 19 years old. We were in musical theater together, and we got cast opposite each other. Our characters actually got married in the musical we were in, Anything Goes. And 2 years later, we got married. I remember my first memory of having a bigger family, because we both have 2 siblings, so fairly small families. And I was at a friend of mine's house, and he had like 5 brothers and sisters. And I just remember there always being like stuff going on in life and active. And we actually wrote about this at our Engaged Encounter weekend, because we were talking about like what family size do you want? And I said, I really feel like I love that idea.
Absurd number.
I think I said 9.
It was definitely 9.
And we're not there yet. But
you said 9 would be a football team, which is actually
11.
11.
Yeah, 9
And
kids.
I said, if I have 9 kids, I'm not playing football. So we're gonna have to recalculate
Renegotiate
somehow.
stuff. But I remember them having just a lot of life and a lot of fun. And if there's one thing about our family now, we definitely have a lot of fun. You know, there's always something going on. There's always life. There's always energy in the Mette house.
We had already had 5 miscarriages also, in addition to our 8 children. And that's no light burden either. Like, it's an emotional challenge, and it can make you reevaluate what your job as a parent is. Our job as a parent is to get our children to heaven. And that's what makes the success of our children.
I think whenever we first got married, I always envisioned being like very wealthy and very successful, or at least I equated like being wealthy with being successful. And I think I've realized more over the last couple of years that that's just not the trajectory that God has us on. And I think having a big family, sometimes you're trading monetary wealth for a different kind of wealth, you know. And in prayer, a lot of times, I'll say like, you know, I wish that we had more money, or, you know, I'm nervous about money, or, you know, whatever, especially because we work in ministry. And so you're kind of always trying to make ends meet, or trusting that God's going to take care of you. And in prayer, a lot of times God just says, your riches are not in your bank account. Your riches are in your family and in your kids, and in the memories of playing games, and the memories of riding roller coasters, the memories of playing music, you know. That we have a different kind of richness. It's in God's mercy that we had a girl first and not a boy, because I would have been very, very strict on a boy. That kind of sense of military discipline kind of stuck with me. But I think that really laid a foundation and a framework for obedience and proper order in the family that really has borne fruits, because now the kids are old enough that they can babysit each other, and so they reinforced a lot of those values that we have. Every time we walk into Mass, it's like, yep, there's the Mettes. We're the biggest family in church, you know.
It definitely feels bigger now, though. Like, kind of 5 is considered a big family. I didn't feel like we stuck out when we had 5 kids, but with 8 kids, and now that they're teenagers, like when they're small, you kind of like, oh, they're all kids. They fit in a small space. Now that we have big ones, like we definitely take up the whole table. And you do feel like people are watching you, or you can visibly see people go, you know, like, or my favorite comment was when our girls, our 4 oldest are all girls. And so I had them in the grocery store. And I remember a guy behind me, and he looks at me and he goes, 1, 2, 4. 4 girls. And then his eyes got real big and he just froze and goes, 4 weddings. I was like, they're 3 years old. Like, who thinks of that? 4 weddings. Like, he must have just planned a wedding or something. It was so intensive, but it was so not on my radar. Our kids are, in general, pretty well behaved. You know, not to say we don't have our days, because we definitely have our days. And so we do tend to get a lot of compliments on what a beautiful family you have, or your kids are so great.
They take after you.
And that's what he always says.
We stand before the power of God. We offer lives of praise, but that's not enough. Their lives are merely temporary things. Let us store up treasures in heaven for the life we're awaiting. Choose to know you, choose to love you, choose to serve you, Jesus. I choose to know you, choose to love you, choose to serve you.
Our ministry is a music ministry, and so we have to be good at that. So we spend time practicing, and the kids, they put in time, they put in rehearsal time, they put in personal practice time. But we also try to make sure that we set aside time to pray with music. We do that with our Worship Wednesdays, but also just we'll do times in the evening where we'll just get together and have like a family prayer session, and we'll sing a song, and we'll say what we're thankful for, kind of go around that everybody can share what they're thankful for, and we'll sing another praise song, and then share what we're praying for, what we're struggling with. Every child that we've had has added a different, unique flavor and element to our family, and so I think that, you know, it's like Mother Teresa says, how can you say there's too many children? It's like saying there's too many flowers, you know? Like, all of our kids have added a different flavor and a different, I don't know.
And we always kind of look and evaluate, what are we concerned about? What are we worried about? And then we sit down and say, those things are all temporary.
Right.
Like, those are things that we're worried about for the next 6 months. Those are things that we're worried about for the next 2 years. But a child is like a lifetime of joy, a lifetime of giving, being able to give more, because it's a whole nother person. And is this worry that is, 6 months worth of worry enough?
Having a big family, it makes you really not treat everybody like a wholesale. You have to make an intentional decision to spend time with each of the kids and develop a relationship, because they're all unique. I'm blessed that I spend a lot of time on tour with the 4 older girls. So we have a lot of time driving, and they'll be in shotgun, and we can have kind of daddy-daughter time. When we're home, I definitely try to spend time with Truman and MJ in kind of age-appropriate ways, but it can be a challenge sometime because there's only so many hours in the day, you know.
Right. Anything that you have to do times 8, you know, if it's 30 minutes times 8, or
Right.
buying shoes times 8,
And
it can be overwhelming.
When you're not the first, you know, when you're a middle child, I think especially, it can be hard to celebrate that 7th birthday, you know, for the 4th time, because there's not like necessarily milestones there, or you feel like it's just kind of going through the motions.
Now, the flip side of that is that they also get, they have the relationship with us, but then they have those relationships with each other. And it's really interesting to watch them, because sometimes they pair up with each other based on age. Like the 2 oldest still hang out because they feel like they're not into baby things or whatever. But then later match up by personality. So like the 2 readers will go, you know, the 2, or hobby or whatever. And so it's neat to see them kind of mix and match on different levels. And even the band members now, they'll come home and say, well, this is something I can do with MJ, who doesn't go on tour with them. Right. And it's a fairly significant age difference from them, but this is something that we can do together. So we like to do that, to spend time with him, because they know he misses out on those things.
Yeah, those family bonds are not just mom and dad to the kids, but also interwoven with all of the kids having relationships with each other.
And it's really interesting because as we watch our parents who are from families of 7, and as our family gets bigger, I can see a lot of times the age difference between the top and the bottom, those relationships are very drastically different, you know. And I can see in our family that the 4 girls are going to be much tighter because they're closer in age, they're all girls, they spend a lot of time together. And then we have the boys, and then a couple more girls. And so Edith, who is 3 months old now, my oldest daughter is 15 years old. So by the time, I think around 4 years old is when you start to really retain your memories. So by the time she's 4 years old, there's a good chance that Gabriella is not even going to be living in the house.
Right.
And so that's a really, sometimes sad, but really interesting dynamic to think of, how it's not just siblings that you grew up with, you know, like they're going to have a really drastically different relationship than Gabriella and Trinity, who are just.
But there might be another generation below Edith that she might be closer to. Like our oldest daughter, Gabriella's friend, is in my generation. Her good friend is my cousin. And so
she's a senior and Gabriella's a sophomore, and they're like
peas in a pod.
Right.
So it's interesting how you know, the generational gap, it's not as far as sometimes people think they are. I love having a big family, especially whenever we go to a party or a family gathering, because we kind of bring the party, you know. It starts when our family arrives. And I love that we can play a board game and we always have enough players. And you know, it's dividing up into teams. I love that we have our friends over, and it's just like tons of people playing kick the can and like Ghosts in the Graveyard and these kind of games outside. I love that we go to ride roller coasters, and our family like starts the slow clap, and we're like in enough different places that we can like turn the tide and get everyone excited about whatever cheer, you know, that we're doing. And I think, you know, love can't help but go outside of itself, outside of the family, into the community, and outside of our lives, into our work and into our ministries and into the mission.
Keep me safe, oh God, you're my only hope. Hide me in your wounds and draw me ever close. You could never, ever forget me.
A lot of the good traits in our family are really supported by the ministry that we have, because for a sizable chunk of kind of the formative years, our kids were spending time in Catholic churches with like the best volunteers and people that wanted to be there. And that really reinforced a lot of our Catholic values. And that's not something that you always get. A lot of times kids go to a school that maybe is not supporting their Catholic values, or they're hanging out with friends that are drawing them away. And our kids have really had the opposite. Like everything that we say is kind of reinforced by.
That was a happy side effect.
That was a happy side effect.
We didn't plan that. That wasn't what we expected. I mean, it wasn't even on our radar that that would happen. But as we started traveling and visiting churches and watching them interact with we used to ask for people to help watch the kids so we could get things ready. And they'd be like, oh, here's our DRE, or here's our Sunday school teacher, or here's and it's like, oh, our kids are getting the A+, they're getting the cream of the crop here just as a volunteer babysitter. That's so cool. Or you listen to them, teach them different things that just naturally comes from those people. And it's so cool to watch.
Yeah, it's our experience at camp too. A couple years we were able to serve at a camp, and all summer, just being surrounded by, people that are just living the faith and really wanting to strive and grow in holiness. And for our kids to think that's normal, is really, really cool.
I think themes in our life, themes in our family are to use the gifts that God has given you. That's a theme that comes up in our show constantly, and I think it comes up in our show constantly because it's such a theme in our lives. It took us a long time to figure out
where God wanted to use my gifts.
I have music, you have music on your heart, but there's it's not liturgy music, and so we try and embrace in our kids, what are your gifts, and feed those gifts and put them at service to people.
Yeah, that's the formula for a life of joy. When you take the way that God's created you and you use those gifts to serve others, that's a life of joy. And I think you see that in our family, that each of the kids uniquely is able to use their gifts to serve their family, to serve their community, to serve the greater church in different ways. Somebody that's really close to me is I don't want to have kids. I don't want to pass on my genes to anybody else. I don't want to, make this problem any worse. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. These kids are going to be the solution. You hear Truman, he's got a brilliant mind. I am so excited to see, and God willing, I can't wait to see what he becomes, because I know that he's going to be a brilliant intellect and a creative mind and a force for good. And I can say that about all my kids in different ways, that I think they all have different ways that they are going to radically, to quote Steve Jobs, put a dent in the universe, And that's my goal. I say, no, we need more kids, because these are going to find the solutions. These are going to help to solve global warming and energy crisis and all of the different issues in our culture. I think one specific one, the pro-life cause is so near and dear to many people's hearts. Obviously, Michelle and I are very pro-life. And I think the way that you're going to change the culture is not by getting the laws changed. We should pray for those things. We should fight for those things, yes. Not saying anything bad against that, but just showing what a joy it is to have children, what a blessing they are. Seeing the smile of Edith's face, or seeing Truman's curiosity. Those are the things that are going to make people say, I think I'm going to choose adoption, not abortion.
If you have good news, we expect you to want to share it. Salvation in Jesus Christ, the Son of God, who for love of us and for our salvation came down from heaven. Salvation in his name, and he is the only Savior, is what we are on earth for. Therefore, all those who spread the good news of salvation in Jesus Christ, we should encourage them. I can speak, but how many people can I reach alone? But the media, the television people, the radio, the newspapers, and all those who use the computer and its derivatives in various ways to spread the gospel. We must thank them. We must encourage them. we must work with them so that they can continue to spread the good news. There's so much news that is not so wonderful in the world, but there is also news that is wonderful on the gospel of Jesus Christ. We encourage them and beg God to bless them, especially the Shalom World TV. God bless you.